Yo, welcome back guys. In this video, I'm going to be telling you how to qualify and make earnings in the new solo victory cups in the new Simpsons season. So first of all, it's important we look at the format because it's completely new. It's basically a mix of the old solo victory cups and the solo series of last season. So there'll be two qualifiers where you'll have to place top 1000 on EU and NA Central and then top 500 on all other regions. If you do this, you'll get into the finals where every game you can win $200. Everyone's always very interested to know how many points it will be to qualify. Obviously, it's hard to predict in new cups like this, but what you can do is exactly the same point format as the solo series, 60 points for a win and 2 per elimination. So you could basically go back to the solo series and look what the points were for top 1k in that, and basically you'll have quite a good guideline of how many you'll need. Obviously, for the second week, you can basically just look at the first week and see how many points it was. So let's get straight into Dropspots, as it seems to be what a lot of people struggle with, especially in solos. To keep it simple, you basically have 3 options. You land at a split drop, you split a POI, or you land at a POI to fight. So the less chest you're landing on, the less chance there's going to be that people are contesting you. Just keep that in mind when you're choosing a split drop. And then if you want to go up a level of risk, you can basically start splitting POIs. Obviously, it is a bit risky because you never know how many players are going to land at your POIs. So if you wanted to sort of split this between 2 and then about 5 players land there, you only have 1 building, then obviously you're going to be a bit more scuffed. But the benefits to this is obviously you have more chests, and if you are lucky and get it sort of uncon or only one person, especially on the bigger POIs like Evergreen Terrace, you can end up getting a lot of loot and be set for the rest of the game. And the last off spawn option is for those aggressive players who basically want to take off spawn fights. So they'll land a POI where there's going to be a lot of people and then basically try and get some early eliminations. There's a lot of benefits to this. Obviously, you're going to be set for Surge, often have good loot, and basically you're going to win the POI, so you basically get all the loot. But also off spawn is basically the best time in the game to fight, because what you don't want to do is sit in a game for 20 minutes and then decide to fight and then end up dying, and you've basically just wasted 20 minutes of the tournament. So it's basically dead time. So if you fight off spawn, it's definitely good, because if you could die, you could just go again. Obviously now it's a 2-hour format with only 7 games. You do need to be careful that you don't die too much off spawn and burn through your games. So what are some other considerations when choosing a drop spot? Well, a good one is to know the boss locations. So if you don't know already, one boss spawns per zone, and it's basically completely random which one spawns and where they spawn. And as you can see, if you land center map, you have a high chance you'll get at least one of the bosses. Obviously, the P90 and TAC from Homer and Marge aren't that strong, but one of these could be the crusty balloon blaster, and that is definitely a win condition in itself that could go on and win you games. So maybe you might consider landing at a center map location. So if you guys didn't already know, the day before the solo victory cups, they've basically added chainsaws back into the game, and this is like the old chainsaws, like unlimited rotation like we've had in previous seasons, which is very good. But for some reason, Resfab has spotted this doesn't work in comp, so hopefully they do fix this before tomorrow. However, even if it is fixed for the cups, you can only get them out of chests, and it's only a 2% chance that you're going to get this item. So although a really good rotation item, it's basically going to be impossible to get them, and you might not even get one in any of the 7 of your games. So until then, the blinky fish are still going to be your best bet. With you can get them out of chests 11%, and then you can obviously fish 20% chance. If we go to the fishing spots, the downside to this though is they are sort of very right side map orientated, so this would be another consideration of where you're going to land. You want to land somewhere where you're going to get your metal off spawn, because there's not a lot of metal options in the map, but also if you go to farm at mid game, other people are going to have the same idea and you're going to get into a fight that you don't really want to do. So the best POIs for metal is going to be the power plant and also the slurp works. They both have a lot of barrels as well if you want to save your shield. However, as we're only talking about solos, you only need 500 metal, so most split drops will be fine. So before we move on to the mid game, let's talk about the last important aspect of off spawn, and that's basically knowing when to rotate out of your drop. So for this, I would say there's 2 main options. You either want to go early and be the first one to leave your drop to get priority. So like this guy, he's got out of Evergreen Terrace before the 4 players behind him, and now he's got priority to zone. Whereas someone like this guy, he's leaving last, and now he's going to have a congested rotate. Or you do the complete opposite and basically stay in storm and play zone like this guy. So all these guys are just rushing to zone. So by the time time you're done playing zone, they're basically going to be gone. So you basically have 3 rotates. So first of all, I'm going to talk you through this top loadout, and I've basically created a very passive loadout. The only thing with this single weapon is obviously if you had attack only, unlike the revolver last season, you would struggle for any sort of long range tags if there was surge in the lobby. But this loadout is obviously, you wouldn't want to fight with this loadout. It's purely to try and get as much placement as possible. Then the next, which is the second one down here, is basically the complete opposite. And I would say this is sort of a fighting loadout for all the aggressive players that are going to basically be W keying. It is quite important that if you're going to be taking lots of fights, that your heals you are carrying are quick to pop. So in this case, I've done the burgers and minis because you obviously don't want to be popping things like medkits or big pots in fights, because it's just going to be really hard to pop if your opponent is good at pressuring. And then for the last loadout, which is this one down the bottom, it's probably just sort of like the most balanced loadout and probably the most popular that everyone will be carrying. You can basically think of your mid game as fulfilling the rest of your loadout and materials for what you didn't get off spawn. So here you can see this player is still 200 wood short, so he's basically getting that, so he's capped materials. And then what's going to be his next goals? He's only got 1 rotation, so he's going to try and find 2 more of them. He needs to find more shields, he needs 1 more big and 3 more minis, and then possibly a thunder depending on what he wants to play. So that's going to be his goals for the mid game. If you're in a key game and you don't have to worry about rotates, but you do have to worry about people keying you, the best thing you can do is basically just hide. And Sarcoma talks about it a lot, just sort of the art of doing nothing. A lot of people just struggle to camp, and it's what costs them a lot of solo tournaments because they just go needlessly and key even though they've got really good loot and end up dying. The benefits of basically hiding, camping in a house somewhere like this is if you're in a base, obviously someone will see that and come and key you, but also if you're camping in these buildings, there's a high chance someone could come in and you can just get an easy kill on them. These guys that have all chosen to basically just settle for the edge of zone, now it's pulled down here, they're going to have a very hard rotate. Whereas the guys that went a bit deeper in, as you can see, they've basically got a free rotate for the next zone. And obviously, if there was surge in these lobbies, these guys are going to get to zone first and basically can hold all the guys coming in. So they're basically going to be above surge also. Then I think mid game comes down to also play styles. Like I said, the passive players can basically just hide, but then there is going to be the aggressive players that basically go out and spend most of their mid game just hunting down players for their elimination points. But also there's going to be players like this who might not want to key, but there's basically no more options. If we look at the zone, there's no more options for them to basically refarm their mats or get more shield or more rotation. Like, this guy's completely scuffed, so the only way then is basically to go out and get a refresh like you see he actually does, and that's going to basically claw back your game. It's very important that you do actually decide you need refreshes in instances like this, because it's basically called game management. If he just continues playing out this game like this, he's basically got no chance that he's going to get any good placement, so he's just going to have wasted by the time he dies sort of like 20 minutes in a game. Like I said earlier, that's one of the worst things you can do for your tournament. It all just depends on your situation, right? Like, obviously if he's got a few points to qual and this is his last game, obviously he's going to try and do everything he can for that extra placement, maybe not go for the refresh because it's a bit risky. Whereas maybe like this was his sort of second to last game, and I know a lot of people sort of wonder what they should do with the late queue. My advice is always basically see what position you're in. If you have stacked loot to play out the game and you've not got much placement yet, stay in. Whereas if you're in a shambles spot and you've got a lot of placement already, then leave for the last game. In this case, this player actually does really good here. Although he's whites and people knows it, like this guy's spraying him, he just fully commits to getting this loot drop, because this is make or break, right? Look at the loot now, and then look what it is when this loot drop comes down. Key thing to note, guys, obviously there's a lot of loot drops on this new Simpsons map, so definitely one of these can change your game, and we'll see what he gets now. So he gets the gold thunder, and he's basically got now full shield with some leftover. For all you passive players out there, this could sort of defer the need of getting refreshes, so definitely get on these loot drop guys. So now we're going to get into endgame, and obviously the big topic is the lack of rotation this season. Obviously with the new chainsaws you won't have to worry about this because you'll have unlimited, but like I said, they are very hard to find. Obviously we haven't got the fishing strat anymore either, so you're going to be limited to basically 3 blinky fish. So how do you sort of manage this? Well, Genie here basically shows what you should do. So he doesn't have a bad zone pull on this, and because of his good positioning, he basically has a free rotate. So on this example, he just basically rotates in instead and basically saves his blinky fish. So this is very good. If you basically have a free rotate, just use a few mats and basically save your blinky fish for, say, if it pulled down here and then he's then got a max pull, he would need them way more. What I don't want you to do is basically be too greedy, try and save them every rotate, and then you end up dying with about 3 in your inventory. So a common question people ask as well is what layer you should be playing on. And because of this literally one weapon, I think it depends a lot. If you don't have this weapon, I definitely wouldn't recommend playing height because you're going to be like this guy and basically be caught off. Whoever has this weapon can basically shoot under high ground and you'll go flying off with a balloon and basically be killed out the air, or they can just come up on you like this. So it's basically really hard to keep height, and you can almost guarantee that unless they're a really bad player, if they have this exotic, they are going to go for high ground because it's so easy for them to do so. If you do want to get fraggy and you are a good low ground player, you can obviously go there as you're going to get a lot of refreshes.